Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Such a pleasure to be able to speak to you.
Such a pleasure too.
Maybe you could kick off with a brief introduction to this incredible film, Robe of Gems. So if people don't know anything about it, how would you give us a brief synopsis?
It's a film about the fear of living in a time and also in a society in Mexico that doesn't have a common project for the future.
I believe it came from a very personal place, the idea for the film, things you'd kind of observed in your society. So how did you kind of decide how to tell this particular story, and why was it so important to you?
It's something that underlies the reality in Mexico somehow, and it's part of our lives because it's a tragedy that is happening for a long time now. I certainly live in the countryside for 15 years now, so I have it at hand somehow. And what drew me to this particular film maybe was my encounters with mothers that have missing children, and I think that was my point of departure, like the feeling that pushed me to the film, born in that period, in feeling that I couldn't describe at that moment, and it was some kind of guilt, I think, that's about not being able to feel at least in part the pain of the others. Like, I felt like a lack of empathy in me. So at that point I realized that I didn't want to do a film about nor the violence, nor the narco story, nor the missing people problematic, but a film about that dimension, like the wound that we have inside, and maybe we don't realize that we have it.
And what feels very kind of fresh and original about this film is that it's very much from the female perspective, these kind of three women whose lives collide and intersect in unexpected ways. So what do you think is different about that perspective? Because perhaps we have that kind of cliched view in our minds that this is a world of men and male violence, gangs and things like that. But of course, women's lives are part of it too, and become involved.
A simple fact that put me in the position of choosing women characters, and it's because I'm a woman and I feel absolutely identified with other women. So it was easy for me to talk about a mother, a daughter, or to talk about another woman. That was my position, and also I can only speak from the little part of where I'm experiencing life. You know, I experience life in a little dimension, and that dimension is the countryside of Mexico, a social particular frame. I wanted to talk about something that I know and I can criticize and that I have certain responsibility in.
And tell us about your casting process, because I believe you managed to get a lot of people who are actually from the community, but in particular your three female leads. How do you decide who's going to be perfect to work with you on this?
I think that the casting process is a process that is for the director. You're not like looking actors that can perform well, but you're looking someone with you can communicate deeply, and that search in the process of casting I found very important, like to feel if the other can open with you, and if you can open with the other in an honest and direct way, and if you feel comfortable with that person. And of course, you are looking at a certain energy, a certain presence, and a social framework, and you're looking for some particularities, but especially someone that you can communicate with. So the process of casting lasts like almost a year or a year and a half, and I drove a lot and talked with people all around the state where I live in Mexico. It's the central part of Mexico. Then I choose. When I knew Antonia, who plays Maria. It was a very brief meeting that we have, but immediately I felt her, like it was very, very immediate. And with the police commander, I knew her, and I saw her in the school of my kids. She has a teenager boy, and she was there picking up her son, and I was watching several times until the moment I approached, and I wrote the script thinking about her.
And maybe you can tell us a bit about kind of the look and feel of the film, because it seems to me sort of understated in a way in its tone. Like the drama is stripped away, and we're left with these, you know, kind of these scenes that kind of patchwork together in a way. So how did you want it to look and feel? And do you take your inspiration from other directors, other works, or is it just from your own kind of inspiration?
What you have at the beginning is something like a desire of a form, you know, that's materialize, and it's a process of develation somehow. I permeated a lot with the feeling and with the people and with the places and with experiences, and I read, and then I sit down and write the story, letting the story happen somehow. Not the story, but letting things happen without asking why. You know, it's very important, and was very important for me just to throw things like they were. And I wrote much more of what it's left in the film. There were more complex and more expanded scenes. And at one point I had to synthesize, because there were a lot of characters, and I received inspiration from the current of cinema that I believe is a current that's like trusting in the cinematic language. That the narrative is only part of the cinematic language and not the main part. I think that we are used to a system now that it's based only in narrative and in plot. And I think that if you are always thinking about what is going to happen next, you are forgetting about the present somehow. You're forgetting about your body and the experience you can have in the present. My intention was to construct a film that is linked with that current of cinema, because it's the cinema I love. And the cinema I love, I cannot tell what it's about sometimes. And it's also what we experience in reality. I think in reality we don't live in a linear way. We don't experience reality in a linear way. We don't think in a linear way and not remember. I trusted in that intuitions to write, and what it appears was a constellation, a patchwork, as you said, of scenes and sequences that were linked by some concepts and some ideas that I think they are permeated in all scenes. And yeah, and yes, I love the cinematic language. I love the cuts, the frame, the color, everything.
And what do you hope people will take away from watching the film? Because there is a feeling of hopelessness. The scene in the police station in particular, for some reason really hit. It seems endless, that cycle. But is there some feeling of hope and the resilience of people also to keep going and to come together?
Yeah, you're right. I think the resilience of people is it's a beautiful and also tragic characteristic of Mexican people, you know? Like, I felt that in a lot, like people that resist and resist and resist endlessly. And it has something beautiful too, because they take life as it comes somehow. The Occidental mind questions much more, like, and tries to direct something that sometimes is undirectable. But yes, I think that of course there is hope. Maybe what I felt and what drew me to the film, it's too much permeated in the film, and the film seems hopeless. A friend that saw the film for the first time told me, this is a story for children, like a horror story for children, you know, like. And yes, I think that our reality, especially in Mexico, have a lot of layers that are difficult. It's difficult to define, to conceptualize just one thing. You have to see from the sides.